the topic that we wanted to talk about tonight was specifically white racism. That is, the racism of white people that white people inflict or harbor on people who are not white, and that definition is, that different people have different definitions for that. Some people consider, for example, Mizrahi Jews not white, or dark-skinned Greeks, perhaps. But we're not talking about, we're making a distinction between anti-Semitism, which we all are somewhat familiar with, maybe, some of us. But it's a distinction. I don't know everybody's identity in the room, but I'm presuming that for the most part we're Ashkenazi Jews. So I would, and I'm calling that white for now, because although we're Jews and we have our own, identity with respect to that heritage, in the U.S. at least, and Israel and other countries, we also are white people, and so we have that, so to speak, privilege of being white. And I just want to make that clear distinction between the Jewish anti-Semitism piece and the whiteness, the white identity, and the racism piece. Does that make sense to everybody?
You mean not in terms of the white supremacists don't consider us white, but you're not talking about white supremacists, you're talking about just the ordinary society where we're part of the majority, so to speak.
Right. Well, I guess because of, how we're going to talk about racism, and so how what we're defining as racism is white people, which we are considered.
They consider us so,
we
even
are.
if we're not.
Who considers that?
So,
who's they?
I'm considering, well, here, let's say this. I'm considering Ashkenazi Jews white.
The people who
For
make
this
the federal
discussion, for the purposes
forms,
of this discussion, I'm saying.
the people who make the forms consider you white, because you can't.
There you go. Right.
And therefore, don't you also have to include
What about if they're from like
those Jews
Uzbekistan
who say that because I'm discriminated against, my discrimination against others is canceled out because I'm discriminated against? So you have to
the
include
reason
that.
why I'm saying that
And to avoid discussions of this kind.
What about Georgian Jews? Are those considered Ashkenazi or Sephardic?
I don't know.
Spotty.
Because it's not such an easy distinction here.
No, it's not, and the whole,
not. We're not talking about.
to back up anyway, the whole idea of race is something of a construct, like where that dividing line is, who's not white or who is white. But in, I'll focus, we can stay with the U.S. In the U.S., there's certain privileges, so to speak, that go along with being white, and then there are certain ways that people get targeted with racism who are not white, and some people who don't look white. Who look white, who actually have other heritage, or Hispanic, or even black, or Asian, or whatever, and vice versa.
So
actually, maybe it's an interesting question to ask. Has anybody here? I often get asked if I'm Hispanic. Does anybody else get asked if they're a different race sometimes?
French guys are good as Chinese.
People ask me if I'm black. It's like an Eskimo.
I've been called a caveman. By the Geico people, no.
You are a caveman, that's true.
I get Hispanic sometimes too, and Italian.
Just curious. I'm just curious.
Okay.
Okay.
I get offended when people think like maybe I'm Hungarian or something.
Are you?
No, we're Lithuanian.
What?
How are you?
Oh.
That's how you wanted to say.
So the reason why she was prefacing our discussion with that is because there actually is a lot to be said about being in our identities, in these white Jewish identities. There's a lot to be said about our struggles and everything. But for the purpose of this discussion, we're talking about racism in general, and that's what she meant. That's why we wanted to preface the discussion with that.
When Shimon Grady comes in, ask him to tell you his story about the homeless man in the subway. The homeless man in the subway said to him, it's a very funny story.
Okay. Great. So, one of the things I'd like to assert is that as being the non-target of racism, the non-targets of racism, we are conditioned continually, whether we're even conscious of it or not, throughout our lives to sort of carry out the racism in different ways. And most of it is we don't even realize that we do, but ways that we're unconsciously racist towards people. Some people, probably not mostly in this group, so, you know, there are some people that are consciously racist, but a lot of our racism comes out unconsciously. And we don't even realize what effect, you know, certain things that we say or do have on
That everybody here is an Ashkenazic Jew.
What?
As seen by the fact that everybody in the room is an Ashkenazic Jew.
Yeah. Right.
Everybody's affected.
That's what you said before.
That's no proof of that. There's no proof of anybody's attitude. First you need to ask, is there any authority in the room?
We did. We just did.
We keep them out. Yeah, they need to be
They're not.
removed from the room.
Okay. But the way that, or what? So what I was saying is that what we want to assert is that racism, even for white people, damages our lives and makes our lives smaller and lesser.
Racism held by them or racism?
Racism, like, as we're raised in a racist society, where racism prevails as an institution that exists and is very much in every, and pervades every institution of our society. And we'll go into examples and stuff in a little bit, but let me just say that living in a racist society, we pick up elements of these prejudices, and those, and then we, as a result, and then we are affected. We, as the non-target, as the agents of the racism, our lives are made.
Non-targets is the same as agents?
Right, because the target of the
Well,
racism.
that has to be justified.
Right.
To say that a non-target means, to say that you're not a target means that you're a proponent.
That's true.
That needs justification, that's not obvious.
Okay, so I would assert that in a racist society, we pick up, subconsciously a lot of the time, we pick up racist viewpoints, racist, you know, ways of being racist, so carrying out this oppression, and that holds us back. That damages our lives and makes our lives smaller.
It's a little bit of a different perspective of what you're hearing.
Right, that it's only an effect of, you know, that only the people of color suffer, right? It's
No,
the white
it's
people
like
suffer.
it's like Engel's speech, that there are three people who suffer. The person who's upon itself, the person who says it, and the person who hears it.
Mhm.
So we could be like the people who hears it, or the
Mhm.
person who says it.
Right.
Say something true.
Are you gonna define what racism is?
Good.
Because there's not a clear definition of it.
Yeah, sure.
Good.
I guess it's.
Okay. So I'll read a definition. We can talk about it.